Who are they? Where do they come from? And what is their agenda? Knocking on doors in the dead of night and striking overwhelming fear into the hearts of those who look upon them. We're left questioning the phenomenon that is the black-eyed children. Music. When we think of children, we usually picture friends and family playing at the park. Laughter, excitement, grass-stained knees. Their world is one of innocence, warmth, and belonging. But of course that isn't true for every child. Some grow up in broken or abusive homes. Some live in poverty or are abandoned at birth. Others are born into places where survival to adulthood is far from guaranteed. The world can be a cruel place, and many children carry burdens they never asked for. No child should suffer. But what about when children themselves become the source of suffering, bringing fear, illness, even death? For one group, that seems to be their way of life. That is, if they can even be called alive. Thought to primarily venture out at night, black-eyed children, also called BKs, have been linked to strange deaths, hauntings, and even to men in black. Reports come from all over the world, knocking at doors and windows, approaching people in secluded woods, or appearing beside drivers at night. They always ask to be let in, or to be given access to something the victim possesses. Their most obvious characteristic is, unsurprisingly, their pitch-black, oversized eyes. Witnesses often report them traveling in pairs and say their presence inspires an inexplicable, paralyzing fear. Accounts regularly describe them speaking in monotone, appearing trance-like, gesturing repetitively, and otherwise remaining devoid of emotion, barely engaging with the world around them, and focused only on their target. The most recent spike in sightings is often traced back to 1996, when Brian Bethel shared his account on the forum Creepypastas. His post both terrified and inspired a generation, and affirmed the existence of black-eyed children to others who had experienced similar events but dismissed them as psychological episodes. Brian recalled an evening that year in Abilene, Texas. While trying to mail a check on North First Street, two boys, roughly 9 to 12 years old, knocked on his car window. One told him they wanted to see a movie, but had left their money at home and asked for a ride. They emphasized that they were just kids and didn't live far away. Bethel was moved by their vulnerability and reached to open his door until he saw their eyes. Cold, black, and bottomless, the eyes triggered an irrational terror. The boys suddenly grew angry, ordering him to let them in. He locked the doors and drove away. When he checked the rearview mirror, the children were gone. Aside from their eyes, Brian's description of them was relatively ordinary. One red-headed, pale and freckled, the other curly-haired and olive-skinned. But their eyes, soulless orbs, he called them, like two great sweeps of starless night. After his post, the internet provided a platform for others to share their experiences. BK reports multiplied, fueled by social media. But this phenomenon is not purely modern. Encounters with black-eyed children reach back over a century, waxing and waning through decades but never entirely disappearing. Naturally, many theories have arisen about their true nature. Paranormal, supernatural, or perhaps entirely human, but afflicted with an ocular disorder. Some suggest extreme pigmentation of the iris and pupil could render the eye entirely black, a physiological explanation that, if true, would still be terrifying to those who saw it. Whatever they are, black-eyed children have claimed a place in modern folklore, unsettling, elusive, and universally chilling. Do they grow up? If black-eyed children are human, and their eyes are only the result of physical defect, do black-eyed children become black-eyed adults? That question divides investigators and online communities. Witnesses themselves report far fewer sightings of black-eyed adults, but a handful of accounts suggest they might indeed age. A middle-aged apartment manager from Portland, Oregon, added weight to the they grow up theory. The woman, then 47, often had to meet strangers at doors and open apartments for tenants. One afternoon in 2004, she was approached by a youth asking access to one of the properties, a boy she estimated to be 16 to 18 years old. She says she was overwhelmed by how black his eyes were. The fear was so visceral she remembers thinking she was going to die. Rather than invite him in, she slammed the door and remained distressed for hours. Later that night, after calling her daughter for reassurance, she learned of other black-eyed child sightings in Portland. Indeed, numerous incidents have been reported across the city. While it's impossible to be certain, these reports suggest black-eyed children might progress into black-eyed teens and eventually adults. In both the Bethel, Abilene, and Portland examples, victims described a psychological assault, a sensation that overwhelmed them before they even realized the children's eyes were black. Many witnesses say they noticed the darkness of the eyes only after an initial, disorienting delay. Some researchers theorize that older BKs could develop the ability to mask or hide their black eyes entirely. Contrasting with they grow older, idea are claims from the United Kingdom that a single black-eyed child has haunted the same area for decades. Cannock Chase in Staffordshire is reportedly plagued by the spirits of 3 children murdered by serial killer Raymond Morris in the 1960s. Locals claim a black-eyed child, a young girl, has been heard crying out for help for the past 35 years, drawing would-be rescuers into the woods. Staffordshire has become infamous for paranormal activity and has been frequently tied to black-eyed children, a reputation that grew after author Lee Brickley published UFOs, Werewolves, and the Pigmen. One sighting at Cannock Chase Woods on October 10, 2015, drew worldwide attention when paranormal investigator Tom Bookmaster claimed to have filmed a black-eyed child. Reported in national press, the short clip, filmed around 7 p.m. in the woodland, shows a pale silhouette in the distance. Bookmaster's Haunted Finders team argued the figure was likely not human, saying it seemed to emit its own light. Using a spirit box, a modified radio system, the team also reported hearing footsteps and phrases such as "we're watching" and "we're looking." At Staffordshire, as elsewhere, dedicated black-eyed children investigators watch for spikes in reports. They often visit hotspots where sightings have been recorded, hoping to uncover clues, or to have an encounter themselves. Most sightings, however, occur in the dead of night, especially in the early hours of the morning. The majority of witnesses report being awakened or disturbed by a knock at the door or window, only to find 2 children standing outside. Many accounts describe BKs wearing old-fashioned clothing. In the post-war years, sightings spiked again. Then in later descriptions commonly included pasty skin, black eyes, monotone voices, and a foul, sulfurous odor that lingered long after the children left. That odor is a recurring detail in modern sightings as well. Because many reports cluster near military installations and airports, particularly after Roswell in 1947, connections between BKs and extraterrestrial activity have been proposed. Sightings continued to the 1950s, a period of heightened public interest in UFOs and aliens. In popular discussions, black-eyed children have often been linked to aliens. The sulfur smell, for instance, echoes descriptions from alleged alien abduction cases. There are even reports of BKs riding in cars with men dressed in black, echoing the Men in Black lore. Whether they are malformed humans, otherworldly entities, or something else entirely, black-eyed children remain one of modern folklore's most unsettling mysteries. Children who look familiar but inspire a fear that is anything but childlike. Do black-eyed children grow into adults? The lack of substantial video and photographic evidence makes the whole black-eyed children phenomenon both more mysterious and harder to prove. Despite the many sightings reported, there are several convincing reasons to doubt whether BKs actually exist at all. First, many suppose encounters happen at night or from a distance, conditions that make accurate identification difficult. Witnesses sometimes disagree about basic details, and memory can be unreliable. Second, control tests as far back as 1939 show how tricks of light and expectation can change what people see. Observers tend to perceive shapes and colors the way they expect them to be. One experiment even found that people described a leaf shape as greener than a different shape cut from the exact same cloth. Social scientists also note that imagery of black-eyed children is now so embedded in mainstream culture that it's almost impossible to separate genuine footage from artwork, film publicity, or Photoshop. Still, sightings surged in the early to mid-1990s and again in the early 2000s, and those eyewitness accounts continue to capture attention. In 2012, a low-budget film called Black-Eyed Kids was funded on Kickstarter, and in February 2013, mainstream outlets briefly covered spooky sightings of black-eyed children before removing the story. Skeptics argue that many reports are simply copycat retellings of earlier stories, but not every report fits that pattern. A striking example comes from Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. The Oglala Sioux people there reported BEK encounters despite reportedly never having heard of the phenomenon beforehand. Multiple witnesses described soulless black eyes, monotone robotic speech, and requests for food, and chillingly, for blood. The children allegedly tried to gain entry to homes on 3 separate occasions, and pets began to disappear. In January 2017, the community called a shaman to bless the reservation. So, what happens if you let them in? Accounts vary, but many claim the children either become frantic and violent or completely unresponsive once indoors. Some witnesses say the BKs scream or convulse, while others insist the children can inflict pain or illness. One detailed report comes from a rural Vermont couple. One snowy night, at about 2 a.m., 2 children knocked at their door. The pair looked old-fashioned, the boy with a bowl haircut, the girl with long straight hair, and they gave vague answers about their parents. The couple let them in reluctantly. The children sat on the sofa, staring straight ahead, and making no eye contact. Soon the husband felt dizzy and then suffered a heavy nosebleed. The wife later spotted the children's completely black eyes. The kids asked to use the bathroom. Then all the lights in the house went out. In the dark hallway, the children sang that their parents had arrived and walked out, climbing into a vehicle driven by 2 men in black. Power returned about 30 minutes later. In the subsequent weeks, 3 of the couple's 4 cats vanished. The 4th died of a sudden hemorrhage. The wife began experiencing nosebleeds and dizziness, and the husband later developed skin cancer. The couple remained convinced the visit was responsible. Who or what are the black-eyed children? We know only small, scattered details from second-hand reports. Their numbers, location, and motives remain unknown. They might be a modern folktale born from overactive imaginations and copycat storytelling, or they might be vampiric, demonic, or otherwise paranormal entities from a different plane of existence. Some suggest clandestine government experiments, while others point to links with UFO lore. Sightings often occur near military sites or airports. Witnesses report a sulfurous odor, frequently associated with alleged alien encounters, and there are tales of BKs riding in cars with men in black. If BKs do exist, their origin and purpose remain unsolved. As with many modern legends, evidence is messy and anecdotal. The one pattern many observers have noted is that BKs tend to target people who show an interest in them, those who read about them, listen to podcasts, or watch videos. Whether that's a causal relationship or just confirmation bias is impossible to say. Until stronger evidence surfaces, the phenomenon sits squarely between folklore and the unexplained. If the stories are real, only time and better data will reveal their true nature. If they're not, they're nonetheless a powerful piece of contemporary myth, one that plays on a primal fear, that the familiar and innocent may hide something entirely alien. So, lock your doors and windows tonight.